Hello lovelies, welcome back to Cults and Cake, the channel we talk about cults, narcissists, and we serve up the tea with a slice of cake. Today's cake is a mini roll, because you know I like my roll. So today I'm going to talk about spiritual gaslighting. But first, we need to look at what spiritual bypassing is.
What the hell is that?
So spiritual bypassing is when somebody uses religion to basically ignore reality. It can be claiming that they are so spiritually evolved that they don't need to get bogged down in the details, or it can be avoiding an emotional issue that they don't want to talk about. Basically a way of people avoiding a difficult conversation and using faith or beliefs to kind of like gaslight their way out of it and not have to deal. So it's quite similar to gaslighting in general. So gaslighting is basically a manipulation technique to make somebody feel like their reality isn't real, make them think that they are perceiving things incorrectly. And the way that people do that is blatant falsehoods. So they will lie to your face. So if you see somebody like your partner doing something with someone else that they shouldn't be,
I don't know what to do.
and you say, hey, I saw that, they'll just go, I didn't do that.
It wasn't me.
You didn't see that. To try and make your reality unstable, to be like, wait, did I actually see that? You sort of like, you trust them so much that you like untrust yourself and your own perception. They can't take the blame for something if they don't admit that it happened.
It wasn't me.
So if they never ever admit that they did this action, you can't hold them accountable. And that's where they do it.
It wasn't me.
So the next way is distorting reality. So twisting your words and your actions to make them seem different to how you actually perceive them, or even insisting that you said or did something that you know you didn't say or did do. And the way that they are so like adamant that you did this thing that you know you didn't do, you actually start to question. You're like, did I do that and I just forgot? Or like, maybe I said it harsher than it sounded in my head, and maybe that's why they're reacting in such a way. And you start to question your own perception of like tone, details, and things like that. Or if you have a very valid reaction to something, like they hurt you and you're angry, that's a normal reaction. They will twist it so that you are over exaggerating. And to be honest, most of the time women are under reacting because we've been conditioned not to react to like horrible stuff constantly. Plus it's just exhausting. So when we do have a reaction to something and someone tells you that it's too strong, it's actually that the person wants to silence you. They want to subdue you into silence. They want to distort your reality and distort your reactions so that you think, oh my God, I'm acting crazy. I need to be quieter. I need to be, more in myself. I need to like not react so strongly to stuff, when actually your reactions are completely valid. It's just that they don't want to deal with their reactions for things that they've done. So one of the most annoying things in gaslighting is projection. So accusing you of doing the thing that they are doing to you. That one F's me up every time. I'm like, how can you not see that you're doing it to me? But the thing is that they can see that they're doing it to you, but they want to project it onto you so that they don't have to deal. So they'll project their own negative traits, negative thoughts, insecurities, poor behaviour, everything that they're doing that's bad about them, they'll project that onto you so that you can take on that guilt, you can take on that blame, and they can get away scot-free. So they'll accuse you of being the problem that they created, and they'll continue to blame you for the smaller things that they're doing over and over again, and you get this like accumulated guilt, and after a while that kind of weighs you down and you start to believe their lies. And when the blatant lying, the distorting your reality, and the shifting, the blame and projecting doesn't work, they'll result to forceful manipulation, which can be coercion, intimidation, financial pressure, obviously violence, insults, but any physical interaction, just even like the physical presence of somebody standing near you can be threatening. So they'll use all of these like tactics to try and essentially scare you into being quiet and doing what you're told. So how does this work in a spiritual setting? So spiritual gaslighting involves neglecting your psychological needs and your common sense and I'm prioritizing spiritual belief instead of practical solutions. So that's another example of spiritual bypassing. And the disconnection to reality you feel when you're being gaslit plays into a disconnection of reality in a religious way. If you're starting to doubt your own actions, words, thoughts, reactions to things, it's not that big a stretch to start doubting like a spiritual reality. I mean, you could even have things like, hey, a demon is making you do that. You can get fed those ideas quite easily when you're already in a state of being gaslit. And so this is something that happens in cults a lot. You have to be destabilized to be able to believe lunacy. Essentially, you have to disconnect to your own normal reality to be able to believe like flying purple monster in the sky eats people.
He was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater.
So just as with gaslighting in a relationship, they would play up the good things that they do and play down the bad things that they do. And this happens in a spiritual setting as well. So say a cult leader would play up all of the benefits of this cult. They won't call it a cult, but you know what I mean. And they'll downplay all of the like horrible abuse that's happening to get you to focus only on the positive and ignore the bad. And of course with all spiritual, well, not all, that's going to rile some feathers up if I say all spiritual leaders are narcissists. All cult leaders are narcissists. So they're all self-righteous. So they all have a grandiose sense of self. Their ego is inflated. So when you put that in a spiritual setting, they're supremely enlightened. They are connected to aliens. They are an angel come to earth. Do you know what I mean? It's any kind of grandiose, almost extraterrestrial, like superhuman ability that they sort of create. Like there's some sort of enlightened being that is irreproachable and shouldn't be questioned because they're so enlightened. And with that supreme ego comes belittling people and bullying people and putting other people down and condescending. What that looks like in a spiritual sense is you're not enlightened enough. You won't understand. You're not on my level. Like, I speak to God. I'm better than you because I speak to God. That kind of thing. So another example of spiritual bypassing and gaslighting is the devil made me do it. So it's basically a way to escape the accountability of the things that you actually did, to blame it onto a supernatural entity that apparently made you do this thing. It means that you're not at fault. You don't have to take any responsibility, any blame for that. Nobody can come down on you. So, it's spiritual excuses that there are negative energies attached to you and that's why bad things happen to you. No. You did something bad in your past life and you're being punished for it now, so you just have to accept your punishment. No. People genuinely think like this. It's so nuts. And like every cult, and I would argue a lot of spiritual situations, religions, incredibly victim blaming, primarily of women and children. And it's very much that like you are asking for it, but in a strange spiritual realm that doesn't even make sense. You have some negative energy, so you're attracting demons and that's what's causing all the issues in your life. No. But you deserve it because you attracted them. No, none of that is real. And of course the leader all this time is, preaching how amazing they are, how superior, how enlightened they are, and nothing, they couldn't possibly do anything bad. But behind the scenes, they're doing really bad stuff. And you see it a lot with televangelist priests. It's like my porn, okay? To watch like televangelist priests get exposed for doing the crap that they preach not to do. They all be out here cheating. They are. It's really funny. Or watching like fake psychics get exposed. Oh, delicious. Another thing that comes into play with spiritual gaslighting is shaming people for their own feelings. If you're questioning the faith, which is very normal because a lot of it doesn't make sense, let's be real, they will basically accuse you of not believing enough, accuse you of being like against the religion and therefore cast out. So yeah, they will shame you into believing or into being silenced by accusing you of not being a believer, not being faithful enough, and therefore you're sinful. And that also applies to like victims in the situations of religion and cults. They're like, hey, I don't like this thing that's happening to me. And they're like, you deserved it. So it's that... I hate it. Another thing that happens is you get questioned on forgiveness. So if somebody has done something heinous to you, your ability to forgive them is judged. And frankly, you don't need to forgive somebody who's done something bad to you, ever. And it's okay to never forgive. And people preach this thing of like, you have to forgive to let go. No, you can let go. You just don't need to forgive. You don't need to give that to them. That thing happened. It's awful. You can deal with it and move on, but you don't have to forgive the person who did it. I think that's so toxic, personally. Forcing people to forgive their abusers, and this happens a lot in cult situations, when somebody does speak out to the group or somebody else and say, hey, this elder is doing something nasty to me, they basically get pressured to forgive it and allow it. In that sense, it just continues. throughout the entire cult, throughout all of the people involved. And you see this time and time and time again, and it's always women and children that are being abused, and it's always men who are the abusers. I haven't found a cult situation that's the other way around, so if anyone knows, please tell me, because that'd be very interesting. But it's a narcissistic abuse of power. Religion is just the vehicle for them doing that. It's the same in any setting. You can have an abuse of power in a finance business, the same situation. It's just they're using religion. And religion's tricky. It's tricky. It gets up in your head and does some stuff. So along with being pressured to forgive an abuser or an abusive situation, they also use like partial truths or bits of text that support their agenda, their narrative that they are pushing. It might say, love your neighbour in the Bible or something, which, yes, it says that, and that's a nice idea to love everybody and respect everybody. However, if they put it into this situation where abuse is happening, the failure to love that neighbour, the abuser, is you're judged on that, which is insane. And it's just the pressure to continue to let the abuse happen and continue to let the narcissistic leader do whatever they want. And they also use like half-truths, like pseudoscience. So the idea that like all bodies contain energy, yes, that is true. You can measure that. But then saying that like enlightened people have more energy or something like that. So it takes a little snippet of science out of context and then puts it into a bizarre faith reality that is just constructed completely. They'll use that as a vehicle to pressure people. So they'll be like, if you want your energy centers to be as strong and as enlightened as the creator, you have to do such and such and such. And when I say creator, I mean like, cult leader. Or they'll say, like for example, Scientology, they have that machine that you have to have some weird electric current go through you, and it can tell you like how much emotional energetic trauma you have to release. That's all bollocks. It's pseudoscience nonsense. The machine doesn't actually do anything, and it definitely can't read like emotional trauma. So insane. And the reason they do it is so that you're forced to like purge that trauma, and they record it. They record it and they use it against you, allegedly. And there's been lots of people who've spoken out about Scientology, and they say that we were, pressured into these incredibly toxic situations that are a replacement for therapy, because they don't do therapy, where you basically just have to tell your like most deep, dark shame to this stranger who's like, oh great, I'll just write this down, put this in your file, just keep that in case I need to blackmail you, okay? So yeah, this is how like partial truths and pseudoscience is used to manipulate. It's also used to build faulty logic, and that's something that continues really long after you leave the cult. So in like new age cults,
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
that don't have a strong central religion, but they're not like an offshoot of anything, they're sort of like a hot pot of religious nonsense, basically. Just my opinion, don't get angry in the comments. So the like half-truths and the pseudoscience is used as a way of like story building within the cults. So how new age cults
Age of Aquarius.
build a religion is really annoying and complicated and a big old mess, and it's really hard to sort through. So they'll take some spiritual belief from religions, various ones, and then they'll take some pseudoscience, sprinkle that in there as well, then just some crazy nonsense that doesn't even make sense. So they'll take the idea of say auras. They're not provable, they're not measurable. People have claimed to have photographed them, but that is not real. People have claimed to be able to see them. There's no evidence, there's no proof. In my opinion, if one human can see that, then all humans should be able to see that. We have the same brain matter. So they'll take the idea of auras, then they will develop something that they can exploit people using that. As part of the cult that I sort of grew up in, part of the teachings was an aura cleansing process called electrobics. And it's basically a process where it's a bit like Reiki, where you sort of wave your hand over and like sort of feel the aura and like cleanse it of things. And of course there's a charge for this process and you have to take a class to learn how to do it, and then you need to do it before you go to meetings, and if you're not in the right frame of mind and in the right mood, if you start questioning things, they can start questioning, hey, is your aura clean? you're acting up. You must have something wrong. We need to clean that aura. It's like this, a kind of pseudoscience idea with no proof, and then they'll morph it into something that they can monetize, because that's essentially what cults are for. They're for power and money and control and abuse. Basically, that's the purpose, because the leader is a narcissist. So they'll take this concept from other religions, they'll develop a process that's unique to their specific group and tout it as the way to do things.
This is the way.
This is the way.
And they'll charge you for it. And something that happens a lot after you've paid for this thing to learn, and you don't feel any different because it's nonsense, that's all bollocks. You know, you'll get blamed. People will be like, oh, you weren't in the right place for this. You weren't, you're not enlightened enough. You didn't tune yourself. That's all bollocks. That's the idea of like tuning yourself to some sort of like enlightened state is used a lot, and nobody can tell you what it means because it's absolute bullshit. So to be able to tune yourself to a frequency where you can like do things that other humans can't do, that's nonsense. That's nonsense, and there's no evidence to prove it. And if you ask someone, hey, how do I do that? And they don't have an answer. They're like, oh, you just have to think on another level. What level? How? What thoughts am I thinking? Write it down for me. God damn it. Like, and they'll say like, you know, to understand what I'm really talking about, you'll need to like, you know, level up. You'll need to attune yourself to a higher frequency. That's all bollocks. That's just an excuse because you can't actually explain the concept that you're trying to sell me. Like, this is what I mean about spiritual gaslighting. It's so infuriating. It's so prevalent in especially new age cults. Because it's all nonsense and nothing's provable and it's all pseudoscience and there's not even any history to it like religion. And so they use these gaslighting techniques to essentially like shut down your questioning and avoid having to explain things that you've asked. So you're like, so you said there's this enlightened being that you speak to. Who is it? What do they look like? How do you contact them? Like, and they're like, I tune myself to a frequency and then I can just see this magical entity. Okay. If that was the case, we could all do that. So, and if they could explain what tuning yourself is and what frequency you're tuning to and how it really works, then hey, I'd give it a go. But they can't because it's nonsense. So let's talk about cult leaders, preachers, religious leaders. I think we're all familiar with the stereotype of Catholic priests doing wrongdoing, you know what I'm saying? And there's a reason, because people who think in extremist black and white terms tend to have narcissistic qualities, and people who have narcissistic qualities with the extremist black and white terms tend to get into religion. It seems to be connected. So yeah, every cult leader is a narcissist because that's the entire point of a cult. It's a whirlpool created to feed the shark in the centre. That's what it is. So when a religious leader is accused of doing something wrong, their status protects them. Because we couldn't possibly think that a priest, a man of God, could hurt a child. We all know that's bollocks. So, of course, not every priest. I'm just, this is an example. Not just the actual leader, but the higher-ups in the cult. They will be involved in the abuse, without a doubt. Because one narcissist on their own isn't very powerful. You need like an army of people around you to be powerful. If we just all ignored the narcissist, nothing would happen. They wouldn't be able to build a cult. But the problem is that they suck a few people in and then people believe those people. It's the ones that are genuinely nice people who have been fooled by the narcissist and are basically manipulated into carrying out what the narcissist wants. And those higher ups in the cult are the ones who excuse the abuse, who do most of the gaslighting, who will always support the leader over the victim, that kind of thing. Just look at NXIVM, Alison Mack. completely vulnerable when she joined, completely distorted reality, and she actually became the abuser. So it's the ones that are like second or third down you got to watch out for, because the leader is nuts, obviously, but the ones that are clever about it are the ones that have been manipulated by them but know how to manipulate other people below them. So, and a lot of people in the cult will never actually have direct contact with the cult leader, which is so bizarre. So once it's big enough to have like different groups, different sects, different meeting houses, whatever they call it, it's the leaders of those meeting houses that are in control at that point. So it's sort of like a great narcissist with all these little lesser narcissists carrying out their bidding, and then all of the poor people who get sucked into the cult underneath that. And so those are the people who'll be shutting down the questioning, because obviously the new people coming into the group will be like, hey, this is kind of weird, I've got some questions, and it'll be up to the people just above that. It's a hierarchy, so the people just above that will be in charge of shutting down those questions, and often putting the burden of truth on you. So instead of explaining something when you ask the question, they'll say, you go out and research it. You tell me if it's true. That's putting all of the work on you. And they're just like, I don't want to explain it because it's absolutely a lie. So you go find some evidence for me. You do you gaslight yourself. It's, here you go, baby. So they put the evidence finding on you, essentially. And it's the same in a relationship where you catch your partner cheating and they go, prove to me that I cheated. No, the burden of proof is not on me. And it's the same way around in these groups. And they put the burden of faith onto you as well. So if you don't believe their obvious lies, you're not faithful enough. You're not enlightened enough. You're not spiritually advanced in some way. You're not intelligent enough. You're not blah, 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 blah. Basically anything to escape the fact that they're to blame. And, put it all on you. When they have been caught out and they've done something bad, they don't want to take accountability for it.
Wasn't me.
And they say, I didn't do it. And you say, yes, you did. They'll say something like, God knows my heart. Or like, only God knows the truth. Like, God's on my side. And it's like this weird, like, believability by association or something. It removes responsibility and it removes accountability. It excuses their actions because God saw them doing it and hasn't punished them. And it sort of like justifies their actions by using like a divine get out card. So yeah, they'll say things like, only God knows the truth, put your faith in God. God knows. And you're like, I know. I don't need to ask anything else. I know what I saw and what you did and all these things. And it's a way to keep you powerless, because if you're always asking for help from something higher, you're never going to be doing anything physical to take action. When something bad is happening to you and they tell you to pray on it, that's unbelievably disgusting. No. Something bad is happening to you, you need to expose the person doing it and go to the police or whatever form of, justice that you have. And it is gaslighting. It is gaslighting when you're saying to somebody, hey, this really awful thing is happening, I need some help, and they say, go and pray. That's basically them going, not my business. Go and wish upon a star. No, that's not help. That's not advice. That's gaslighting. That's spiritual bypassing bullshit. The worst one is God knows you better than you know yourself. Now imagine that in a toxic situation. When you're saying, hey, I'm really unhappy about this thing happening, and they're like, God knows you better. God knows you're not really unhappy. It's removing agency from that person. That's incredibly damaging to your self-esteem, confidence. You know yourself. You know yourself. You don't need some spiritual being to know you. You know your own self. And you know your own experiences. And for somebody to say, you don't know yourself, and, that's basically the same as you're overreacting. It's the same distorting of agency. It's the distorting of your own self-awareness, your own character. None of that shit. So something else that happens is the discrediting of certain members within the group, or people who've been forced to leave, or people who have voluntarily left. Like righteous criticism by saying that they were a bad seed, a bad spirit. There was something spiritually wrong with them. That's all bollocks. How do you measure whether someone has some sort of spiritual issue? You can't. And by discrediting them and demonizing them, you're sort of like saying that your judgment is justified because there's spiritual backing. So you can be like, that person left the cult, they're an evil demon. I know because I'm spiritually enlightened and I talk to God, and you know, so it like justifies excluding people or punishing people or very toxic situations. Using the religious justification for terrible abuses is extremely common in cults and in religions and all over the world. So say your religion says it's okay to beat your wife, so you beat your wife. That's criminal, that's disgusting, that's abuse. But because they've said, oh, it's okay, it says it in the book, in this book here, it says okay that I can hurt people because, you know, religious justification is actually foul. I can't even believe that people think that that's okay, that they can't step outside their religious bubble and go, hey, this is really bad, like, why are we doing this? Something else that religious people do, using prayer to escape action. Like I said before, like, just pray on it. Even worse, when you say, hey, this thing's happening, I need help, and they say, I'll pray for you. That's not help. That is not help. That's contributing to the abuse. That's turning a blind eye to something really bad that's happening. You're not helping somebody, you're helping the perpetrator. It's basically using like prayer or belief, or it doesn't even have to be prayer, you know, it can be some spiritual practice that is similar to prayer. Using that as an excuse for like lack of action and not wanting to take any responsibility, not want to actually like help somebody who's struggling, but to have that religious superiority. I have a special connection to God, so I'm going to pray for you and you're going to get better. Bitch, no, it doesn't work like that. And it's like a really interesting like external locus of control. If you think your life is controlled by a greater force, by God, by a spirit, by a demon, whatever the hell you believe, you're never going to take any action. You're never going to have any control in your life because you're going to be sitting there praying instead of doing stuff. And it's really interesting, like psychologically, because you can have an internal locus of control, like I am in control of my destiny, I do things and these things happen and that's how it works. Or you can have an external locus of control and think other things happen to me and I'm pushed from one place to another, and even divinely things are set out for me and I don't have control of that. And it's like, no. You've got agency, you have control, free will, remember that? That really important part. Like, so yeah, cult leaders, religious groups look for people who are vulnerable and in need, and they use that they don't just do a bit of charity work, no, they use that to recruit. And I want to stress that. I want to stress that real hard, because I know that a lot of people think that people are going to other countries and doing Christian relief work or something. Yeah, that's great, go and help people, sure. Don't push them to be Christian though, because that's gross. Like, not being Christian, but pushing someone to be a religion is gross. So those are some ways that spiritual gaslighting is used in cults and religious settings. If you've got any examples of a spiritual gaslighting event that is not too stressful for you, please do put it in the comments, because I'd be really interested to know your experience. But especially like woo-woo cults, you know, like New Age mysticism. Because I've done a lot of research on the Christian-based cults, and it is so similar that it's like, no. So I've been looking into some of the alien cults. Yeah, they're crazy. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like. Please subscribe as well. I'm trying to get to over 500 subscribers. Share it if you think anyone's going to enjoy this. And it's time for cake. It's delish. Put my foot in some water. Sweating like a testicle. Get it? Because I'm fat. Everybody eat some cake. I hate it. Don't know why I'm holding my boobs. Sudden urge to caress. Got a quiver. Cake is a primary food group. It's brilliant. Fuck, that's good. Oh, that was more than I was expecting. It's always a bit more than you're expecting, isn't it? Oh.